Hello, this is Erica Donnison again, member of Alexander Studies Online. This month we're continuing the conversation that I had with Rachelle Tsachor last month, where we were talking very much generally about how her research influences the Alexander technique. This time we're picking up on that and taking it further, but also including a lot more about the research and the research papers that she has been involved in. So I hope you enjoy it.
In terms of research, kinematics can study the body in space, but they're not very good at getting the dynamics and the relationship. And so Dr. Tal Shafir wanted to study what was it about movement. We all know that exercise improves mood, right? There's a lot of studies about that. But you'll get a study, Tai Chi improves mood, yoga improves mood, Alexander technique improves mood, but nobody could understand what the basic mechanism in the movement itself was, what the components of the movement were that were causing the beneficial changes in mood that we saw. So Tal Shafir was also a dance movement therapist, and she had had an introduction to Laban, and she looked about for someone who could help her with that research, and that's how I got involved with it.
Would you like to bring a bit of
Yeah.
what you're working on and
Well,
kind of
this is
your
this is
area of
work
interest?
from a that was published a decade ago, but
Mm.
let me pull up the slides for that. So the paper is called Emotion Regulation Through Movement. And I'm going to bring up some slides. So what I'm sharing now is a presentation that was created for the ATI AGM in Seattle some years ago. And it was basically talking about how our research might be relevant for teachers of the Alexander techniques. So these are the four categories, and that way anybody
Mm.
who's looking at this can take a look at that. And then what did we do with these categories? There was a researcher named Atkinson in the UK, and he had several thousands of participants, which made his research really statistically quite reliable and valid. So he showed 10 clips of actors expressing the variety of emotions according to emotion labels. So the ones that you see here on top are fear and sadness, right? So he just gave 10 actors, say, I'm going to film you for three seconds, show me fear, show me sadness, show me. And these were shown to people all over the world, and they turned out to be quite valid. Then what Dr. Shafir did was she took these clips and she taught them to perform, say, what this male actor was doing to show fear and what this female actor was doing to show sadness. And she put them into an fMRI test, and she was able to see that the happy movements increased positive emotions, and they decreased the negative emotions. And this is really important for Alexander technique teachers because when we're doing lightness and freeness or able to have the results of that from a lesson, we might also be helping people decrease negative emotions. So you can see the results of this slide, and then here's from her 2013 paper, the areas of the brain that lit up that are associated with these emotions. And the problem with this study is just like tennis and yoga and Tai Chi is people had to do specific movements. They learned that actors' fear movement or the other actor's sadness movement, but people are sad and fearful in a variety of different ways. And the question that Dr. Shafir wanted to use the Laban movement studies to understand is this: what is it about those movements that might be in common to all these emotions? So then we looked at all 10 clips of Atkinson in a variety of different ways. We did two different types of analyses. We took the two most recognized clips for each emotion and we motifed them with a full motif, such as 25.12 here.
What does that actually mean? I'm sorry, I don't actually know what you mean by motif.
So just like music has annotation
Right.
that can be read, Laban movement analysis has a script.
Ah,
So
okay.
this script is read from bottom to top, and here we start with shrinking, rising, and retreating. And then we go to sinking, narrowing, and retreating. And that action takes a really long, slow time. So we annotated this movement. And so we did two full annotations and then we separated the components. So this only shows the shape changes. So we
Okay.
might also have the same one for the effort changes and for the body changes. But then we also looked at all 10 clips and we tried to understand what was in common. And we came up with this effort of punch, direct, sudden, and strong punch for in common to some of the anger and a forward movement. So we did this for all of them. And then we gave them to people who can read this script and asked them to move these annotations and fill out a questionnaire about was an emotion evoked when they did these movements. And we also scored each annotation for how many seconds it might have that component. So if it had strength for all 3 seconds, it got a 3. And the next one below it apparently just got a 2. So here we go. And from the statistics, we had these results that these components, strong, sudden, advancing, and directing, were in common. At least 2 or 3 of these components were in common to all of the Atkinson clips that we had looked at. And for fear, there were 5 components that statistically, and these components were positive for the emotion shown and also negative for all the other emotions. If there was retreating and condensing and binding in a movement, people did not feel happy. So the logistical regression was really, really strong. But what's most important for us for Alexander technique is this one. The results for happiness included a variety of components. And if you look at these, how many of these do you think are related to the Alexander technique?
They look very, perhaps not jump, but the rest of them look very familiar.
Yeah. So we don't try to necessarily keep, right? But we might reinitiate our directions. But these other ones, rising, up, light, free, and spreading,
Yeah,
these contribute to
definitely.
that biological feedback from the body to the brain about what emotion I'm feeling. And they decrease the negative emotions.
Mm,
And a lot of people who are experience a disorder in their mood, it's not that being sad is problematic, it's being stuck in sadness or
mm,
being stuck in fear and startle
yeah.
or anxiety, right? That they might consider emotionally to be too pervasive for their own well-being. So these are the results of our study. As far as Alexander technique and self-regulation of emotion are concerned, what we know, what we found out in this original study, is that experiencing new qualities not only expands the motor vocabulary and consequently the available emotions. So if someone cannot rise, they cannot spread, they cannot go upward, they can't feel light, they might not feel happy.
Mm.
Yeah.
There was something else I was going to that I picked up from reading your paper about if you're wanting to come out. So if you find yourself in the, not so helpful anger, sadness kind of positions, movements, that you don't suddenly go, oh no, I need to be up here. You
Right.
do what we would do in the Alexander techniques, which we know from our practice, which you'd go, oh no, I acknowledge I'm here, I notice, I'm just going to go, okay, I'm here, rather than the sit up straight thing. You do it by, okay, well, let's let go of this bit. And I mean, you'll say it in the language of your paper.
Yeah, let me pull that. Let me pull that. That might be a different paper. It might be the somatic movement approach paper. But if I don't have it on these slides, then I'll pull up the reference so people can see which paper that's in. So we've talked about how experiencing new qualities can both expand a person's capacity, right? Their ability to rise or to spread or to lighten. And also that might contribute to the emotion expression that they've got. We've also talked about how diminishing or avoiding certain motor qualities or diminishing their prevalence or their stuckness. So let's say somebody works at a computer and their ergonomic setup is really bad and they're slumping all day long and then they have a bad mood. Maybe we could diminish the effect of their computer work by how we set up their workstation,
Mm.
and just like I think you were telling me that you're sitting on something mobile that you can rock your pelvis, right? So that you
Yeah.
can open and close or lengthen
Mm.
and sink while you're there and you're not stuck in one. And how changing these motor qualities has the potential to bring about a change of emotion. So I'm going to jump now to the bibliography. So the paper that we were looking at just now, this is the emotion regulation paper. Then there's another one that came after this, which is one of Tal's graduate students, Ayelet Meltzer. We took the components. We wanted to test if they were good, right? So we knew that people moved the motifs, and the statistics told us that these were relevant components. But did it work in the real world? So we took people who could read the annotation script. We didn't tell them what emotion anything was. We just asked them to move those components. And hold on, this is a picture of someone moving up, rising, lengthening, lightening. This is one
Mm.
of my colleagues in Israel, Milka Leon. She's faculty at the University of Haifa. We showed clips of people moving these components, 113 clips, to ordinary people who came into Ayelet's lab. And were they able to recognize an emotion from in the person moving? And the results were fantastic. The people just from watching someone rise, lighten, maybe move rhythmically or whatever it was with lightness and upness. And we showed them all different components. Sometimes it was just two happiness components. Sometimes it was the other two. Sometimes it was three. The results were really good. People could recognize an emotion just from the components, even if the mover did not intend to portray an emotion, because we didn't ask them portray happiness. We just
Mm.
said move these components. So this
Right.
is kind of a rigorous control test for us. And the results were phenomenal. People did recognize the emotion, even when the mover didn't intend
Mm.
to show that emotion. And if they got three of the components, if for some of the emotions only two were enough to recognize the emotion, for others it was four.
Mm.
Like for happiness, there's seven components, so maybe three or
Yeah.
four would be helpful for that. So that's the next study that came out in 2019. And the one that this is the methodologies explained here, this one where I'm the first author, right here, How Shall I Count the Ways, a methodology that explains what we did. But the one that you're talking about is this paper right here at the very bottom. And that is open access paper. Anybody can download that and look at it. And that is a somatic movement approach to fostering emotion. And for there, I take some Laban theory about change between movements. And that's the one that we were talking about, where the gradual, less
Mm.
direct approach is less violent and easier
Yeah.
to access.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for us, an Alexander technique, I'm thinking of, oh gosh, I'm not sure I'm going to pronounce his name right. Pedro Dell'Alcantara. His
Alcantara.
book, Alcantara,
Yeah.
thank you. His book is titled Indirect Procedures.
Yeah.
It matches what we're finding, that the less violent approach is more helpful for
Mm.
people for self-directing, for what we call constructive conscious control of the individual.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, the application of this research to AI and that we're carrying out right now with Penn State University and the computer vision lab there, we have a National Science Foundation grant to be helping machine learning for, bodily expression of emotions based on this
Oh,
in
wow.
acted scenarios. And, the other movement analysts in the field are worried about how this will be used.
Mm.
But I'm thinking it can help people with autism. There can be a program that shows them movements that might express, that when you see someone going up and spreading, or some feedback, for someone with severe depression, maybe
Mm.
their home computer can start to notice them sinking more and more and rising less and less, not having those micro exits, right?
Mm.
And send them an alert. Hey, how are you feeling?
Yeah. Just check in, as it were.
Check in as opposed
Yeah.
to Big Brother. I'm hoping that we can contribute to goodness for self-regulation for people rather than some kind of evil people taking over the taking over everything. Um,
I was
um,
interested actually in that the emotions that are listed, happiness seems to be the only kind of, nice one. I
Positive
wondered
one.
about contentment.
Yeah, I can show you a little bit from our current research. The
Ah,
group of us that is working with the AI, we
mm,
compared all the different emotion theorists,
mm,
and we tried to come up with a list of categorical, what are called categorical emotion labels that would be useful for researchers because what we're building in
mm,
our database is just a lot of clips of people expressing emotion from movies. And so we've got happiness, which we have already studied. We've got embarrassment with, these tree branches of shame and guilt, which we haven't studied before. We didn't know before this current work that we're involved in what the motor components or the Laban components were from that. We've studied sadness, but these other labels aren't included in the
mm,
sadness tree by some of the emotion researchers. We studied fear and anger, but we hadn't
mm,
studied anything about love or attraction.
mm.
And so the new work that we're doing with Penn State University is going to give us some Laban components for love, affection, and care
Okay.
and attraction. You can imagine what those might be just from watching your dog. And we're also, getting something about surprise, which in the Alexander technique we would call startle.
Mm,
In addition to categorical emotions, there's an emotion theorist named Lisa Barrett who rejects all categorical emotion labels. And
right.
there, a lot of the computer science research is something called VAD, which is valence, arousal, and dominance. And so these are ways of describing emotion as high arousal, low arousal, valence as approach or reject, and dominance as my relationship, do I feel powerful or not powerful? So the new study that we're doing will have both categorical emotion labels, motor component descriptions using the Laban-Bartenieff system, and VAD. And so we might learn something about those.
And this is where emotions aren't separate necessarily, are they?
Right.
There's a whole kind
Yeah.
of pile of them all piling at once.
Yeah. And we're having trouble finding video clips that are just
Mm,
happy and not happy and angry or, uh,
yeah.
sad and fearful. They're
Yes.
not
Well,
not
yes,
blended
exactly. Crossover.
emotions.
The one thing that I had a slight kind of about this out that Alexander said about if you stop doing the wrong thing, the right thing does itself. So
Yeah.
I suppose my interpretation is that there's almost a choreographing of the movements. So I'm going to be happy, so I'm going to, do happy if you like. But I'm, obviously coming from theatre and dance, then that's it, isn't it? So an actor is kind of, oh well, this character I'm playing is happy, so I need to kind of do happy. So I guess that's the bit where I kind of go, well, the trust in one's self and one's ability for the right thing to happen if you stop yourself doing the wrong thing.
I think it's always a question in all the Alexander technique, how much is inhibition and how much is direction?
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing from you is if I inhibit doing the wrong thing, the homeostasis will work itself out, right? The right
Yeah.
thing will work itself out. And that is often true. And I think what Alexander is really talking about is the tyranny of the restriction of habits.
Yeah.
And what the habits do is they only allow us to do the pervasive thing, right? The more
Mm.
we do them, the stronger they get, the harder they are to change.
Yeah.
And
Or
the
stuck they
less
are.
we develop the psychophysical or the neuromuscular patterns of some other coordination. So that's the neurological bit, is that the
Mm.
more we use a particular pathway in the brain, the stronger that pathway gets,
Yeah.
and the more diminished the other pathways are. So
Mm.
in my research on learning, there's a theorist called Hebes, Habbes, and it's called Hebbian learning theory, Hebes learning theory. And the neurologists call it things that fire together, wire together, right? It's that principle that when you're learning something new, and this would be very helpful for Alexander technique teachers, when we're learning something new, we don't have that established pathway and it feels wrong.
Mm. Yeah.
And there's that sensation of weirdness. I don't understand what it is. And what's going on in the brain, according to Hebbian learning theory, is that a lot of neurons are firing, a big
Mm.
chaotic net, and there's no pathway through it.
Yeah.
But having gotten in and out of the chair, not in the habitual way, but in the new way, eventually a tiny pathway, a fragile pathway, will
Yeah.
begin to appear.
Yeah.
And eventually, the more we do it, that pathway becomes
Mm.
better established and all the
Yeah.
chaos around it starts to quiet down. So if you're learning, say, a new song, like I sing in a choir and sometimes I can't even hear it at first.
Mm.
And then when I hear it, I don't know which direction to go. But eventually,
Hmm.
once I learn it, I know where to go in the song, right?
Hmm.
That's Hebbian learning. And
Right.
it's the same for what we're doing. At first, it's going to feel chaotic and not natural to people because there are a lot of neurons firing and it is very chaotic and they don't
Mm.
have a direction. As soon as we inhibit the known pathway, and this is also helpful in terms of understanding neurogenesis and neuroplasticity in the sense that the hippocampus, which modulates, it's kind of the central switching place in the brain, and it is very, very involved in movement, right? That
Mm.
switching between a thought and a movement. It is the one place that has been found documented neurogenesis, the genesis of new neurons. That was the first place that the
Okay.
neurogenesis was located, I believe, right? I'm not a neurologist, so this is just the things that I take home with me when I'm reading. And the thing that causes the most neurogenesis is learning a completely new movement pattern. And learning a new movement pattern as opposed to just a new sequence of established movement patterns also contributes to neuroplasticity, to these new connections
Yeah.
being made among the neurons. So we're helping to expand capacity by inhibiting and directing. But I think if we do too much directing, then that's more toward the volitional, the conscious control side.
Mm.
And
Mm.
when we do a little bit more of just inhibiting the old pattern, turning it off, we're going to diminish the tyranny of
Mm.
that
Yeah.
habit so
Yeah.
that a new feeling, a new emotion can happen. So
Yeah.
homeostasis, yes, the right thing will do itself. It does in every puppy, every dog, right? They regulate, right? Their emotions come back into homeostasis
Mm.
eventually when their needs get
Mm.
met.
Yeah. In
Um,
horses, there's a thing about they return to grazing. So I work with horses quite a bit, and if they get startled or they get whatever the emotion
right.
is, and then when they return to grazing, that's
That's their
homeostasis returning.
homeostasis. Yeah, they're
It's
balanced
lovely.
in their
Yeah.
arousal and their
I
resting.
like that idea of, oh yeah, I'm just going to return to grazing. I'm fine.
Yes. And in fact, a lot of college students will eat to calm themselves down.
Mm. Well, chewing is supposed to help the I can't say it,
Yeah, it
parasympathetic nervous.
switches. It
Yeah.
switches, it releases the endorphins and it switches
Mm.
you
Yeah.
from sympathetic to
Yeah.
parasympathetic. So
Yeah.
people who have issues with eating, they
Mm.
might find that they're emotionally eating. The idea is I'm stressed, but if I force my system to go from sympathetic arousal to
Yeah.
parasympathetic resting, digesting, that will calm my stress down.
Mm.
So if I have a way to quiet it down, and many indigenous and uh, religious practices have a practice of blessing and singing before a meal. And
Mm.
what are they doing? They're saying, I'm not running to catch my food. I have my
Mm.
food here. I have
Yeah.
plenty of it. I have
Yeah.
enough. My running to catch my food system, my sympathetic
Mm.
system, can
Yeah.
quiet down. And it can switch
Yeah.
before I begin to chew.
Mm.
So that moment
Yeah.
of gratitude practice, whatever that is,
Mm.
before the meal, gives the a signal that I have enough, that I
Yeah.
am satisfied and I'm
Okay.
grateful, right? And then
Yeah.
that can help switch the system so I'm not halfway into my meal before I feel switched.
Well, I think that sounds like a really good place to finish.
Right. I love the research that I do, and I feel very lucky to have access to the Alexander technique. It's really
Mm.
made a difference for me in my life, both as someone with Ehlers-Danlos and the
Yeah,
hypermobility,
yeah.
but also just in terms of regulating my own mood.
There's obviously so much more, and I'd love to talk to you again when bids that you're putting in hopefully are successful, and we'll see what comes out of those. And that current paper that you've just shown with the various new emotions that you've not studied before. That sounds absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.